Hi there, Marcus here from 4POS again. I know it sounds boring if I do all the videos, but it's the way things are. Okay, so let's try and understand properly 4POS list cost versus actual cost. In the 4POS system, some of you would have noticed, and hopefully everybody has, that we store a list cost and an actual cost value for a product. Okay, now first of all, that price or the list cost itself would be excluding VAT. So if you're not registered for VAT, that will obviously mean in your case that it will be the price that you pay the supplier plus the VAT that they charge you. Okay, so that won't be a list cost excluding VAT in your case. It will be inclusive of the VAT because you can't claim it back. Okay, so let's start simply. Um, Sorry, let me just move the screen a little bit left here. When we're talking about a product by the name of Coke 2 liter, Coke 2 liter is a product that's widely used, and again, it will apply to any and all products. So I've just taken one product to try and break it down to you, and it looks like a lot of numbers, but let's go down line by line and item by item here so that you can have a proper understanding. Okay, so let's look at this line first of all. What we are saying is when we created the product, we set the Coke 2 liter. The cost is 5 Rand. And then my actual cost was also 5 Rand. Okay, so just as an example. I then started off my business, or it so happened that I had 12 items in stock. So the value of my stock at that stage was 60 Rand at list cost. And because I put it in as the actual price, or sorry, the actual cost, it also 60 Rand value at actual price. Okay, so now the process starts. So typically what you will do is you will go and do a GRV to enter new purchases that you had in your system. All right, so on the 18th of May, I had a purchase of 12 items. Now it gets complicated or interesting. So I bought 12 items, okay. Over there, my purchase price was 6 Rand each, which means that my total value of purchases was 72. That's excluding VAT, right? And that is my purchase. Now we need to see, okay, well, how did that affect my list and my actual cost? Now, because I specified in my system that I want my list cost to stay the same, okay, and we'll look at the parameter just now. The parameter says that the list cost is 5 Rand. My actual cost will now increase, and that actual cost of mine, as you can see at the top there, it's got a big formula in, but it basically boils down to saying, okay, fine, let's look at the value of my cost, value of the item at cost price, that's 60 Rand, plus the price that I've just paid for it, in other words 72. So that gives me 132 divided by the total quantity. In other words, I had 12 plus 12 gives me 24. That now gives me an average cost, a weighted average cost. Weighted meaning it's linked to the quantity that I had in stock. If I now go along and I go and change the quantity on hand, for instance, okay, let's say I only had 6, you will immediately see that my weighted average cost has dropped considerably. Okay, oh, sorry, has actually gone up considerably. Let's do that again. So it was 12, it became 5 Rand 50. If I had 6, it will now be 567. So it's calculated based on the weight, which is then the quantity. Okay. If you have to replay this section a little bit to try and make sense out of it, please do so. Okay, so that is what the weighted average cost calculation will be. It gives me now a weighted average cost of 550 for that. If I now do some sales on the system after that, in other words, here on the right hand side, you'll see at the same time I sold now 4 items. My selling at list cost plus 30%, so my list cost, my 5 Rand price, plus 30% markup plus VAT gives me a selling price of 748, which rounded up gives me 750. So the value of that sale is then 30 Rand. Okay, And these are just realities in terms of what's happening every day, hundreds of times a day for each and every product. I also had another sale. I sold 6 at that same price for 45 Rand. Okay. Now again, bear in mind that at this time, the cost, list cost was 5, the weighted average was 550. Now the next day, the 19th of May, I did some more purchases. Now I went and bought 24 of them. I got a better price because I negotiated better and I bought a higher volume from my supplier. So I now got it for 5 Rand 90. In other words, this purchase price went down. My value of my purchase is 141. Now my actual cost, weighted average cost, has gone down to 557. And okay, and again, that's a formula, and the formula is based on what my value of my stock was, okay, plus the purchase that I just had divided by the total quantity, and that gives me a weighted average cost then of 557. As you can see, this process will happen many times a day. All right. So on that same day, I also then did some sales. Okay. I sold another 3 units. Again, my cost has stayed the same. My list cost, my selling price has stayed the same because that has changed. That's the value of my sales for each of those transactions. Okay. Now comes the interesting part. Now we start looking at what our product performance or sales report will report. So the total sales that we had for the day or for the 2 days for the period end was 19. Okay. My sales value in total for all those items was 142.50. Remember now that includes VAT. Okay. Just going to move right a little bit. Now my value at cost for those 19 items is, in other words, the quantity multiplied by the list cost, as you can see over here. All right. And the profit for that is 28.91, excluding VAT again. All right. Because again, we're working with costs, right? Now, if we look at the actual, okay, the value of the sales at actual price is 105, okay, which is again my quantity multiplied by my average cost, okay, and that gives me a value. And if I then look at the profit that I made over there, it's a lot less, 18 Rand versus 28 Rand. Now again, these are small quantities that we work on. If we work with real numbers, we say we have 100, 200, 2,000 of a product and 2,000 products, suddenly this number becomes astronomical and could be the difference between making a profit in your business or not. All right. Now you might say, but yeah, but my margins are higher. Well, it doesn't matter what your margins are. Even if you do it margins at 100%. Okay, with those low volumes that you have, and the fact that you're working off old cost prices makes a huge difference in your business. Okay, so the ideal is obviously for you to say, no, I need to work on the latest costs, okay, in some form or another. Okay, so in summary here, we say we use actual cost to calculate the selling price. In other words, we must tell 4PAS to use the actual cost or the last cost then. In other words, my purchase values, the prices that I paid over here, to calculate selling prices, number one. And number two, in 4PAS, we must also use the matrix. We must tell 4PAS that no, I don't want to go and have a fixed selling price like I have over here. I don't want this. This is bad. Okay. I would rather work on a matrix, which means that as my cost goes up, my selling prices increases. Okay. And that will make more sense. Then lastly, down here at the bottom, what I have put for us here is the stock take parameters, or under stock take parameters in the back office under general parameters. You'll see there's an option here that says on processing GRV, update the GRV cost to actual cost. Okay. The default is list cost. In other words, this is the default. The default says on processing GRV, update the GRV cost, in other words, the price that I'm paying, to the list price, and calculate the weighted average to the actual cost. In other words, put that cost into my list cost for me. Okay, and then you can calculate your weighted average, in other words, your 557 in our example here, and put that into the actual cost. Now we know that the list cost in our example, in this example, would be the last price that I paid. Okay, which means that my profit percentages down here will be a lot more accurate. All right. Now you might have an exception. Okay, like many people do. They say, but hang on now. In this example again, that was my price. Now I did a bulk deal. I bought a trailer full. I bought 200 pallets of stock. Okay, and because I got a better deal of it, okay, I want that cost to not be influenced in my system. Therefore, I do not want to give my customer the reduced price because I'm giving the customer now that the benefit of the doubt. Well, what you can do is obviously you can go and change your little parameter down here, right? For that purchase that you now suddenly find is a lot cheaper. Or you might find that, say, but okay, hang on, I got 10 boxes for free. I also need to bring that into stock. Well, yes, you need to purchase that and average the price for that purchase. And again, change your parameter to say do not use it this way for this GRV, or manually calculate it and put your cost back to where it was. But at the end of the day, if my costs are correctly reported, every sale that goes through will be at a better value. Every profit percentage report that will be printed will be correct. Now, again, bear in mind that in 4PAS, when the sale happens, so let's assume now I had another sale here on the 20th. Okay, but now I go around and I make all these changes and I go around now and I say, no. I'm changing my cost now to 5.90, my list cost, and I'm leaving my weighted average cost at 557. And now suddenly I sell another 12 units, argument's sake. Okay. When I change my 12 units over there, that will now sell at the new selling price, which is no longer 750, but argument's sake 8 Rand, just for sake of an argument, and that value of mine will go up. Okay, and that will happen at the time of the sale. In other words, if that's 10 o'clock in the morning, or 2 minutes past 10, or whenever, that will be the amount reported. Okay, and the value is reported, which means that it will affect everything in your system. Okay, all right. All the formulas and stuff will be updated, all the quantities will be updated, etc., etc. Not that it's 4PAS as a spreadsheet, but you understand the concept. The concept is very simply, we want to know what is realistic in terms of our profit percentages. We cannot go and say, we think it should be okay. Well, we think we will go out of business that way. All right, and it sounds horrible and terrible to say that, and hope it doesn't happen to any of us. But for the same reason, we've got to be realistic and say, this is a business. You've got to take care of it. You've got to take care of it better than anything, okay? Because this will put the food on the table for the family. All right, and if we do this wrong, everything will be wrong. I hope it helps. Thank you.